Ontario Environment portfolio holder, and on behalf of our Ontario Regional Chief, Abram Benedict. We acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the unceded territories of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. We are here today to speak to the urgency and importance of safe water and wastewater for First Nations across Canada. In my role, in addition to my role, I'm also a mother and a grandmother. I am a trained and experienced civil engineering technologist with a background across many sectors, including infrastructure, water, housing, environment, policing, education, emergency management, and health. I want to start by reminding each of you the importance and urgency for this legislation to address long-standing water and wastewater issues in First Nations across Canada. Here in Ontario and in the nations that we advocate for and support, we continue to fight every day for access to the human right of safe drinking water. At this moment, 58 nations in Ontario are on long or short-term water advisories, and more are likely on the horizon. That's a third of all First Nations in Ontario who cannot drink safe drinking water in their homes. A third of all nations who do not have access to this basic human right that so many take for granted. The causes of this range from faulty infrastructure, deteriorating water sources and aquifers, to water contaminated with bacteria and even uranium. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the chiefs that are here with me today. Each of them will speak to this very important issue. I want to start first by talking about the importance of legislation. I am honored to have had a role in the development of an important piece of legislation, Bill C-61. This legislation was the result of years of dedicated advocacy by First Nations and sets out a firm commitment to implementing the right to safe and clean drinking water. It went to third reading, including going through the INAN committee before Parliament was prorogued, and since then it has not been reintroduced. This legislation is a critical and important step towards addressing decades of harm towards First Nations. We are calling on the Government of Canada to address the urgent crisis and reintroduce Bill C-61 immediately and honor the 2021 water settlement. We were told yesterday by Canada, by the Prime Minister himself, that they intend to delay reintroduction of Bill C-61 until the spring of 2026. This is not acceptable. First Nations have waited too long. Municipalities, towns, and cities, when under a water advisory, do not have to wait that long. We have also heard that Canada intends to make amendments to the legislation, potentially weakening it. This is completely unacceptable. The legislation, Bill C-61, recognizes the role of First Nations in drinking water and wastewater management. It acknowledges our relationship with water, and it recognizes that we should have the autonomy to make our own decisions about our own water. It allows for the creation of standards and regulations. This is so important. As of right now, First Nations do not have enforceable regulations in place. It allows for the creation of a funding framework and First Nations governance over water. These are all critical components and cannot be overlooked. I cannot stress enough that the passage of this legislation is important, timely, and critical to protecting First Nations' health and well-being, the well-being of our children and grandchildren. Water is a basic human right. This government must act immediately. We cannot afford to wait any longer. Miigwech, and I'm going to turn it over now to Chief Miracle.
Sego Sawagwego. I am Chief Don Miracle from the Mohawks, the Bay of Quinte, a large First Nation in Ontario. I know very well what it means to have a long-term boil water advisory. As our First Nation has been in a long-term boil water advisory now for 14 years, and unsafe drinking water dates back to the 1970s when testing was done by the environmental health officer that worked at Health Canada. There was a time when there was a glimmer of hope on the horizon, but it appears that that hope is fading into uncertainty. And while my community has been able to fix a lot of the problems affecting our water, there still is additional work to be done. 1,018 homes now have safe drinking water, but the job is not finished. There's 226 homes in my community that require long-term, an end to the long-term advisory. We have a shovel-ready design project of 22 kilometers of pipe that will cost $66 million. It will provide lot servicing for another 762 building lots. Our water the groundwater is in short supply naturally, but it's compounded with the impacts of climate change. For 3 of the past 7 years, we have suffered level 3 droughts that have lasted all summer. This was the longest, which lasted nearly 5 months, where if it doesn't rain, the groundwater is not recharged, the wells go dry. And people not only have contaminated water, but no water at all. There are dozens of other communities, or perhaps even hundreds of other communities that still have a long way to go before they can reach parity with non-First Nations communities. Right now, without water legislation, there's no enforcement of regulatory regime for water and wastewater in First Nations. There's no legal recognition of our First Nations governance over water. There's ongoing violation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and Canada's commitment to upholding human rights, and that's the human right to water. The 2021 class action settlement requires Canada to enact new legislation and to provide sustainable and adequate funding to ensure a safe and reliable source of drinking water. The Auditor General's report of 2025 reported that Indigenous Services Canada's progress is unsatisfactory, in fact, citing persistent long-term advisories, inadequate funding formulas and funding levels, and failure to establish a regulatory framework. The 2021 drinking water settlement has to be fully implemented. The $6 billion was the floor, not the ceiling. It was not cap funding. There's a lack of transparency where the $6 billion was spent. Is there any left? Can First Nations get some money from there or not? And First Nations are not getting the funding. That's why I'm here, and that's why other communities are here. And so there's a long way. There's significant work been done, but there's an awful lot yet that has to be done to ensure the basic human right of safe drinking water and the protection of the public health of our citizens. Yawankoa. I'll now introduce Chief Shelley Moore-Frappier.
So good morning. Kwekwe, Giwenokwe, Nidishnakasa Dikandodam. I'm Shelley Moore-Frappier. I'm the Chief of the Temiagama Anishinaabe, formerly Temagami First Nation. And thank you for all being here. I speak today on behalf of the Temiagama Anishinaabe and the many families who continue to live with uncertainty, frustration, and deep concern. I want to begin with a promise that was made to us, a promise of transparency. Recently, I spoke with an ISK representative who assured me that we would receive clear answers on the 2021 settlement that is owed to our people. We were told those answers would come this week. We've heard nothing. This silence is unacceptable. It is gravely concerning that the Government of Canada feels it can operate in this way while our people struggle every single day with the consequences of underfunding and inaction. I am here today because my people deserve answers, and I am determined to get them. What we do know is this: our water infrastructure is failing, not by accident, not by circumstance, but because successive governments have not made the investments required to maintain safe, and reliable water systems in First Nations communities. We have now been told by ISK Ontario Region that there is no more funding for water projects, despite the obligations clearly set out in the class action settlement. Think about that for a moment. Imagine if the City of Ottawa or the City of Toronto or any other community in this country was told, there is no more money for your water. Would Canadians accept it? Would you accept that your children could not drink the water in your own house? This is what First Nations are being asked to accept today in 2025. This is unacceptable. It undermines reconciliation. It undermines the Crown's fiduciary responsibilities, and it undermines the dignity and the rights of our people. The Government of Canada has a clear obligation to ensure that First Nations have access to safe potable water. Again and again, that obligation has been neglected. The courts have reaffirmed this responsibility and ordered the government to make lasting changes. Changes that address the root cause of unsafe water systems, but the required action has not materialized. Yesterday, Prime Minister Carney pledged to introduce water legislation in the spring, and we have heard these promises before. So I asked the Prime Minister directly, will you be the Prime Minister who moves beyond promises and beyond gestures? Will you meet this moment? Will you commit to fixing this problem and truly fixing it once and for all? Prime Minister Carney, you stand on the edge of history. Do what is right. You have the opportunity to help heal generations of neglect while strengthening the future of this country. Our people deserve transparency. Our children deserve clean water. And our nations deserve the respect of a government that honors its word. I will continue to demand answers, and I will continue to fight for the rights of my community and all First Nations across this land. Miigwech.
Yeah, miigwech wan denen dan kenin gabi jan chigagituan nepe chedashindaman. So it kiwed nang donji shkandaga shnikate gawanjian. Okay, I'd like to welcome and thankful to be here to have a say on this water issue. I'm from the community of Neshkandaga in the remote of northern Ontario. And I'm here to speak about our water issue. It's been way too long, 30 years plus of boil water advisory, 11,264 days of boil water advisory. And this is Ontario. This is Canada. We have a lot of issues regarding our water. We have the largest watershed up north. And here we are having issues with our water that serves the community. The system is flawed. The service from Canada and Ontario is lacking. As you hear my colleagues behind me talk about water, And this is more beyond what's happening to our people. I have pictures that I would like to share later, how the water looks in my community. It's very it's very important to get that clean drinking water. It's intergenerational after generational. It's a lot of trauma. I have this cup of water. I'm looking at it. If I'm going to be able to drink, that's how much trauma we have. We have to drink from the bottle of water, 1.5 liter per person, to bathe, to drink, to eat. That's the kind of service we got. We have bottle of water, unlabeled, that's coming. That's provided to us today. Our system is not working. The system of Canada and Ontario is not working. We are treaty partners with the lands, or Anishinaabe. That's our homelands. And here we're treated like, well, third world. I am in the third world. And here projects are getting to be pushed upon us. The ring of fire is getting pushed on us, and we're in the middle of it. And here we have 30 years of boil water advisory. How am I going to get prosperity? What the government says, there's prosperity on industry. I never see anybody get prosperity from any industry. We have a large land in our region. We probably have half of Ontario up north, with large watersheds of clean water, pure natural, the God-given right water that was provided for us to use. Now we were given a settlement water that's supposed to have convenience on our lives. Now it's really impacting. It's really impacting. We have broken families over this water. We have people that are going in the hospital because of the infections. There is lots. And we've been addressing our water since 30 years. And sadly to say, 7 prime ministers we went through. 7 prime ministers. And we've been getting commitments. We're going to fix your water. We're going to fix your water. But today, there's nothing. Nothing but empty promises. I'm calling the government today, call for action. We all need clean drinking water. This is a First Nation people's lands, and we don't have to live like this. A lot of developments get benefit from our lands, and here we are suffering for water. So I'm going to leave it at that, and miigwech.
Chimigwech, and thank you for all of our chiefs here today and for coming. This is an incredibly important issue, as we all have just heard, but it has immediate and actionable solutions. Retable C61 immediately and honor the 2021 settlement. We are now available to take any questions, should there be any from the media.
All right, we're gonna forego the questions. If you have any comments or thoughts on this news conference, the water issue with the Indigenous, leave them in the chat in the comment area, and we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good morning. Bye bye.